The world is waking up, and you finding your way here today is no coincidence. The spirit world always has a way of guiding us where we most need to be at the absolute perfect time. I'm your host, Lindsay Morlock, and you're listening to the Guided Podcast, where we explore how the spirit world works on our behalf to guide us along our paths. This is where you'll learn how to live a life that is both conscious and connected, so you can supercharge your pathway to healing and open to life's magic and miracles. Come along this journey to see how guided you truly are. Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's episode of Guided. This week, I am thrilled to introduce you to Nazly De La Rosa. Naz is a certified life and spiritual coach, founder and lead coach of Believe It Life Coaching, and women's empowerment advocate and speaker. She is the host of the popular Third Eye Talks podcast and co-author of the book Her Path Forward. Naz helps women repair their relationship with change in order to make major life transitions, from moving across the country to starting second careers to leaving unhealthy relationships. Prior to starting her company, Naz worked as a marketing and creative director for more than 15 years in the publishing, real estate, and nonprofit industries. She has a bachelor's of science in journalism and mass communications and a minor in marketing. Naz is actually a mother of 2 boys and has remained happily unmarried to her big love, stand-up comedian Jay Moreno, for over 12 years. So Naz, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yay. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to dive into this topic today with you. And the question I always love to start with for all of my guests is your awakening story, and if you can just share with the audience in whatever way you feel comfortable, how has your own personal journey and awakening to your life's purpose unfolded?
So I really am a firm believer that there are multiple awakenings in one's life. I feel like I've had at least 3 major moments in my life, but I think the one that really opened me up to my purpose was when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. I was living in New Jersey, had a full, career life. I was working in Manhattan and I had just had my second child. So I said, I'm going to go down to Florida where my mother lives to spend my last month of my maternity leave. And when I landed, she was like, I haven't been feeling too good. She started to get worse really fast. And about maybe 2 weeks into my trip, she was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 3. So I had a brand new baby. I had a 3-year-old and I had my mom who was sick. I do have a sibling, but my sibling has been disabled since we were little. So my mom actually cares for my brother. So it came to be like that one moment where everything kind of got together and spun out of control. And I just decided to leave everything. Like I told my job I was leaving. My husband told his job he was leaving. We moved all of our stuff down to Florida. And I realized at that point that I had so many attachments to titles, to the career that I was in, which I've worked really hard to kind of work my way up to where I was, and just so many of these external things. And I literally had a breakdown and said to myself, who am I without all of this stuff? What is really who I am, my value, what I bring to the table. And I asked God, like, give me guidance on what I'm supposed to do next. And I literally had a dream. And in the dream, it was like a gold finger wrote on a blank piece of white paper, be the voice of consciousness, be the voice of consciousness and the one who teaches people how to keep their inner child alive. So it was like a whole message. And I woke up and I just knew it was unlike any dream I'd had before. And I just said, okay, I've received your message. Show me what's next. And literally it's been that journey ever since. Just show me the next step. Just show me the next thing. And little by little, I'm here.
Yeah. I love that story so much because it's these moments, right? It's not necessarily like sometimes it's a big moment in a dream, but it's a string of little moments that really take that next step. And given that you help people with major life shifts and transitions, you make it sound in some ways like so easy. Like I just kept taking the next step. And I know for me, I just moved across the country, right? I was in New Jersey, moved 2,500 miles away from my family. I'm now in Arizona. Arizona,
Oh
quit
my
my
goodness.
corporate job. Now I'm doing the entrepreneurial thing. So I totally get like that. Those are some of the big life changes, right? But I am not someone who is really good with change and uncertainty. And I just hear this easefulness in your voice that feels very dreamy to someone who wants to control everything. So like, how did you navigate that period of your life? Was it as graceful and easeful as I'm hearing it from you? And like, if so, how did you do that?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I really think there were three major moments of awakening in my life. And those three moments led me to understand this one thing, and this is what I tell my clients. I've gathered the evidence, right? And what I mean by that is I've looked back, and I keep a literal physical file. I looked back and wrote down every time I thought like, this is it. What am I going to do? Or this thing happened, this person that I love passed away, or, my mom has been diagnosed with cancer, or, I'm going through this struggle in my marriage, whatever it was. I wrote it down, went back and looked at it and said, every single time I was placed in a better position, right? Every single time. And so what happens is that you can't deny, because I there's a lot of grace in my voice, but I can be very logical as well. So for me, the evidence was there, that every time that something happens in my life, there's an up level of sorts, right? There's something better that comes after it. So if it's been like that from the beginning of my life, as far back as I can remember, then it isn't going to be any different now. That's going to be the case always. So when something shows up, I go to that file and I'll read through my life's, big epic moments and things that I write down every time. And I'll say, well, here it is. This is the evidence. You're going to be okay. Whatever it is, something great is going to come out of it. And sometimes I add to that, right? Like if this and this had not happened, I would have never met my husband, right? Or I would have, and if I wouldn't have met him, then we wouldn't have had these amazing kids. So it's like, I go down each of those big events and I see it. So anytime something new shows up, I'm like, this will be no different. I have the evidence, right? Change is always my friend, and change is always a win for me in the end.
This is such a beautiful message for me about how to navigate change. And I think all of the listeners, because when we're navigating change, I feel like we have one of two options. We can resist the change, and that resistance causes so much suffering in the process, or we can trust that everything is unfolding with divine perfection. And for me, I know trust is one of my biggest life lessons. And it's so helpful hearing like what trust sounds like, but also I can just feel from you that you believe this, like you are just in total trust that everything is going to unfold. And I love that your mind goes out in search of the evidence to prove that true, versus what we also can do is go out in search of the evidence of why it won't come true, or that, and it doesn't serve us to do that.
Well, and even if we do, we will have more on the column of, these are all the amazing things that happened to me whenever change arrived. We'll have more in that column than we will of, we won't even remember half of the things and thoughts that we had in the negative things, as we will, oh my gosh, all of these things happened and I was up leveled. I haven't met one client yet, and I've worked with hundreds now, who when we go through the process won't see it clearly, right? Oh my gosh, the evidence in my life is I always win. Like change is always setting me up to win, either because the situation was stale, or because there was something waiting for me at the destination I was going, or because, I didn't have a way to get myself out of a situation, so the universe did it for me, right? There's always something there. There's always something there.
Yeah, I love that. So when you are like calling on the universe and asking, right, I'm sure there's times where you felt stuck or like, this isn't exactly how I thought. What's the way you work with spirit or God or the universe in order to help you navigate through these changes?
So I use signs a lot. And I know that, people may not necessarily agree with that or see it, but I really do feel that I have a language, a communication with my soul tribe, with God, with spirit, with all of that stuff. I'll start to see, for me, the number one way that I feel guided is numbers. And I will see them to the point that I cannot ignore them, right? They will tell me, we are trying to communicate with you. Feel the vibration of this number and know that we're guiding you, right? So numbers are a big one for me. Animals, I tell people all the time, I knew I was pregnant with both of my children way before I had the announcement that I was pregnant with them, because of animals in my dreams, animals in real life. I'll know a phase of my life is coming to like an end and I'm about to begin something new based on different animals. So I have that communication with the universe, and I've established it in such a way that it just took surrendering, right? Like for a while I was like, okay, well, maybe I'm making that up. Maybe that's a construct of my own like desires or what I want to see, but it becomes something that I can't ignore it, right? It's direct communication. So it'll come in some way. And that's what takes me through it, is knowing like these souls and spirit on the other side are trying to tell me, you're going to be okay. And it's always true.
Yeah. So. Do you have stories or like a specific example where you could kind of show people how, whether it's, with knowing you were pregnant or knowing like a certain aspect of your life was coming to an end, and like how that was all strung together?
Yeah. So I have a really interesting story with my firstborn. I knew way before I was pregnant with him that I was pregnant with him, because I had a dream, and in the dream, I was in my grandfather's farm back in Colombia, and all of a sudden I'm sitting with my cousin, and on the ground are all of these snakes, right? And my cousin picks it up and he shows me the tail of the snake, and the snake has a 6 on it. So I wake up and I'm like, that was a really bizarre dream. Okay, whatever. I have a dream the next night, and it's a dream where I'm walking through this like house, and at the end of the hall, well, when I come in the house, there's a table full of scorpions, right? And then I walk down the hallway, and at the end of this red hallway, I see Dexter, the actor who played Dexter.
Yeah.
And he's holding this beautiful chubby baby. And the thing that I get from him is not like, oh my God, he's going to kill his baby, or, it's Dexter. It's more like, this is a precious child, and you need to make sure that you take care of it to the best of your ability. Anyway, fast forward, I grew up with astrology. My mother taught me astrology as a kid. And so I go to the doctor, obviously, because I'm like, nothing's happening here. What's going on? And I find out I'm pregnant. When they tell me the due date, he was due November 6th, 2013, right? So the 6 from the snake.
Yep.
Was born the Chinese year of the snake under the sign of Scorpio.
That is crazy. I can't even. That's such a good story.
I know. I tell people, and I wrote it down for him word for word, because, I journal, and I keep an email for both of my kids, and I send them emails, all the time. And I wrote him that story because I was like, it was so incredible how you and spirit announced, like, and they use, so that's the thing with divine communication, right? The communication is something that you understand on a deep level, and that is very personal to you, as astrology is to me, to my mother, to my grandmother, right? That's something this soul knew that I would understand once I was told the due date. That's what the dream is about. And it all kind of comes together.
That is so good. That is such a good story. And you're making such a good point, because I think that's what's so hard about teaching people how to work with spirit sometimes, is that they're going to work with your frame of reference. And so there isn't any one way that people communicate with spirit. Like I hear sometimes people, I think they feel discouraged because they're like, well, I don't get information that way. Or some people like, I don't remember my dreams half the time. Every once in a while I will, but generally I don't. But I know so many of my friends get information like you. They have these really vivid dreams. But I think your point is well taken, that they're going to communicate with you however they know you're going to get the message.
Yes, exactly. Like my husband's, and this is for anyone anyone out there for other, ways that spirit communicates. For my husband, it's lights, right? He'll see flickering lights, or the lights will dim, or, we could be going down a road and literally every light will just kind of fizzle out in and out. And so that's his guide's way of getting his attention, right? It's light. Yeah. It's light. I have clients whose communication is like coins, right? Dimes, or animals, where animals are not supposed to appear. I have a client whose guides are so clear with her that they'll bring her the oddest animals to appear right in front of her in her path. So I think it really depends on, like you said, and you used a beautiful way to describe it, right? Your frame of reference, like what resonates with you. It can be billboards, it can be words, it can be music, right? Yeah. Lyrics. Maybe you've heard the same song 100 times, but all of a sudden something in that song really speaks to you that is about your current situation, and you just feel it. You feel it, and like, this is not just this, there's a message here for me.
Totally. Yeah. And that's the fun, I think, of but not that it's not all fun with spirit, but I think like some of the ways they get through to you to communicate different things is just amazing to me. I remember I was on a Zoom call with someone, and it was getting close to my birthday. And so I said to spirit, you know what, just like, I think you should wish me a happy birthday. Like, how are you gonna wish me a happy birthday? And I was kind of this joke, because I was like, oh, maybe I'm going to pull a card and, they'll put me to those words or something. Yeah. I get on a Zoom call with my client, and as she's coming on, trying to get her picture on, it switches to a virtual background that says happy birthday. And I was like, it was an hour after I asked spirit to do that. And I just burst out laughing, because I'm like, you cannot make this stuff up. Like, you just can't make it up. It's like, well played, spirit. Well played,
Checkmate, spirit. You did that. Oh, that's such a good story. Yes, you're right. It's things that just don't really have an explanation, and you just feel them. Honestly, that's all that communication with spirit is. It's just a feeling that you're being spoken to. You're being kind of guided,
Yeah. And just like you're saying, there's an evolution, right? I think the more we play with spirit and we engage with them in these different ways, the more we trust that it's real, the more we stop questioning, like, was that really a sign? Am I overthinking whether that was the sign? So I'm curious for you, like, how have you seen your own relationship with spirit evolve over the years?
So I think for me, it's, as I said, numbers is one of the biggest things, right? And so I initially, right after my cousin, who was, my very best friend, died in a tragic gun accident, I just started to see the number 11. And people know this, if you follow spirit, if you're in any sort of spiritual, even if you've dabbled in spirituality, how powerful the number 11 is. And a lot of people, when they're about to have a spiritual awakening right after something very tragic, that is the number. You'll see it, 1111, 1111, 11 here, 11 there, 11 everywhere. I had never had that experience before, where I felt such a hard, like, look here, look there, look that way, and everywhere I looked, it was that number. And I started researching it, and the more I found out about it, different number sequences started to show up, right? And I started to feel like, okay, even though numerology might say that that's the vibration of that number, this is how I feel about that number, and this is how I feel about that mixture of numbers coming together. So over time, it became like, now I know if I see an 8, I know exactly what that feels like for me, and perhaps even what I'm meant to do. Right? Same with a 7 or with an 11. I know, like, what spirit is trying to communicate with me exactly based on how those numbers feel to me. So that communication has evolved. Honestly, at the beginning, I felt very, like I said, apprehensive about, is this real? Is this not? Like, am I making this up? Am I not? But over time, the more I released like that resistance to it, the more new ways of communicating started to come in, right? The more vivid the dreams got, the more animals I was able to kind of see or have in front of me, or the more, songs or lyrics would come to mind or would come up when I was thinking about something. So I think if you're in that initial stage, they're going to get your attention in the way that resonates with you. They're going to get that initial attention. If you resist it, they're still going to keep trying. Right? Because that communication never stops. When people tell me, oh, they're not communicating with me, or I'm not getting anything, I'll say, you're not being attentive enough. You're not really looking. You're not really connecting the dots. And so I think that the more you start to lower your resistance to it, the more different communication starts to come in, right? So it's like lower the resistance and you'll see it.
Yeah. And you're talking so beautifully about receptivity, right? Like, and I think the more we relax into the knowing that like, okay, this is real. And we're not, because the minute we go into our minds, we're blocking what's trying to come through. We're not being receptive anymore. So your point is well taken. And I also feel like you're highlighting something else, which is really important, which is the conscious awareness to what's happening around us, because you're right. They are sending signs all the time, but our degree, like if we're in our heads, we're not paying attention. We're not being present. So we're not paying attention to what's coming into our awareness, and they will keep poking us to get the message if they need to, right? But I think the other thing I love about what you're saying is about you knowing what the numbers mean for you, because, I often tell people, go ahead and Google, 111 or 222, like whatever symbols that they're seeing, but you can Google that and get 4 different definitions of what 111 means. And I truly believe spirit will intercede with the electronics to get you the definition you need. But then you develop your own meaning of like, I know what 111 means for me is different than what 111 means for a friend of mine. And they're both perfect. And this is where I think we got to teach people to throw the rule books out the window, because it really is a two-way street. And we get a say in how we partner with spirit in that way.
Oh yeah. You have to be able to connect to what things mean to you, and then create your own unique language with spirit. And spirit will talk back and say, yes, that's good. I know that I get your attention that way. That feels right. I'm going to open up more avenues. Like, dreams is one of those things. I have clients all the time where like, I had a dream about, sharks. And I'll be like, well, that's terrifying. And they're like, well, actually, I think sharks are very powerful. And I'll be like, well, that's why we don't make general interpretations of things, because what a snake means to me is not what a snake means to you. What the color red means to me is not what the color red is for you. So we have to be open enough to say, this is how I would interpret that for myself. This is how that feels for me. And the more you do that, and the more that you rely on your own kind of intuition, the better the communication gets and the clearer.
Yeah. And I think it's so important to connect into this, or it can be such a helpful resource to connect into this, especially doing the kind of work that you do with your clients, like making these big life shifts, navigating transitions. I mean, that brings up a lot of stuff for people. So how do you help people hone in on like where they're being led and help them to, keep the fear or these other obstacles that they might encounter at bay so that they can step into these really big leaps and up levels?
Yeah. So I think number one is always trying to figure out what it is they're seeing, right? So I make my clients kind of keep a journal of what are they feeling, what is coming in, no matter how minute it is, tell me about it at our next session so we can interpret that together. And once I interpret it for them, maybe 2-3 times, what it could mean, they start to tie it in themselves and they get really confident on those signs. Now, navigating, yes, someone through transitions and like big life changes is difficult, but I think what people really need there is support, because as soon as they have a cheerleader and they have someone who is like, you've got this, like, look at how you're being led, look at how many doors are opening for you without you having to knock so hard. And that's a key. That's a key in transitions. If you get to a certain point and you're being asked to make a decision, and one is very like open and it's exciting and it seems, fun for you, that's the one. It's not that difficult. And I think that's what people need to hear when they're in a transitional phase is go with what feels easy and right and good and happy. Which of these choices is not necessarily going to bring you the most peace, because then we choose what we know, right? But which one of these excites you the most? Which one of them aligns with your higher self? Because that's really what it's all about at the end of the day. Who do you want to be? What is your legacy? What are you trying to build? And does this step that you're about to take align with that vision? And does the other road lead to that? Which one leads to where you want to go? Which one speaks to your legacy? So we do a lot of that, like analyzing who is your higher self? Where do you really see yourself? Where do you want to go? Because then we can decide what you need to do today to get closer to that version of yourself, right?
Yeah. And are there any themes that you see, like if you had to assign like, this is a pretty consistent block or way that people get in their own way of bringing these dreams to life?
Mm-hmm. So it's always fear. That's always, we know that fear is really what keeps us from embracing change and taking initiative. The key theme that I see is I'm about to uproot everything I know for an unknown, right? I'm about to make this really big move for something that I don't know. Which way is it going to go? But that goes back to my initial point, right? We don't have to know everything that's going to happen. We just have to take the next best step. And that's what what I'm constantly reminding them of. Next best step that aligns with who you want to become and the feelings that you want to have in that place, right? So that's ground zero. Who do you want to be? What is your vision? Because once I know the feeling that you're trying to get in that place, I can align you with that feeling along the way, right? So I've had clients who say like, "Oh, I want to move across the country." That's a big one. So you're in the you can understand. Yeah. I want to move across the country because, for whatever reason, I'm not happy here, there's an opportunity, whatever it is. I'll say, "Okay, you want to move across the country. Why? Why? Until we figure out why," right? For some people, it's for adventure. For some people, it's for abundance. For some people, it's the comfort of being closer to family. Whatever that bottom line feeling is, that's what we want to tap into, because once we know the feeling, then I can make sure that you get in the frequency of that energy. Okay. Let's say your big dream is to move across the country because you want adventure in your life. Okay. Let's start embracing adventure today, right where you are. Take this decision. What's up next? Always think in terms of adventure. Adventure till you get there, right?
You're highlighting something so important, because I think we often try to manifest the material thing because we think it's going to give us the feeling that we want, which is what you're getting to, right? And the point is we need to manifest the feeling now and become what we want. I know for me, right? Like it's so fun to look back in hindsight. Like I knew I wanted to move to Sedona about 4 years ago, but it took 4 years for that move to happen because I wasn't who I needed to be in order to make that move happen, right? And so the 4 years that I was waiting, even if there was an impatience about it or a restlessness, every bit of that 4 years was preparing me to get to the point that by the time I finally moved, I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this. And if it had happened any sooner than when it did, I would not have the transition might have been different in a more difficult way. I might have been questioning or second guessing why I was doing it, like not that some of those feelings aren't a normal part of any transition, but yeah, it's such a good thing. And I
spot on. You're spot on with that, because that's what people get impatient. I work a lot on energy and manifestation, obviously in what I do. And my clients' number one complaint is, why isn't it happening fast enough? Why didn't they call me from that job? Why didn't I get the thing? Like, what's going on here? And I'll always say, if you don't get it yet, it's because when the opportunity shows up, universe is trying to make sure that you're prepared for it, that you're the kind of person that can make the best use of that beautiful thing that you're manifesting, and not a minute before. So you're being prepared to become this person. Like I have had a client who was she really wanted to manifest being a mom, and she was having a little bit of a difficult time. And she, off topic, she would start talking about like, oh, my days are crazy. Like I've been overworked and I'm not able to sleep and I can't can't, I'm not thinking clearly. And I'm like, oh, it sounds like the universe is preparing you to be a mom. I'm like, you are manifesting, like you're being prepared through a situation that you don't even realize is really preparing you to get down to the point where you can become a mom, because that's what moms take, being able to, be versatile, not sleep, work hard for your kids, all of that stuff. So you're right about the universe isn't going to deliver it to you until you can function in that place and in that feeling, because that's my motto. Focus on the feelings, not the things. People think they want things. They don't really want things. They want to feel that whatever those things make them feel, right?
Yep.
Not the actual stuff.
And I think there's something about when we get clear that that's how it works, there is something freeing about it, because oftentimes I tell people, like, you don't need to know what you want. Like, spirit actually knows better than we do what we want, what our hearts really desire. And I think sometimes our minds just get in the way and start messing the whole thing up, right? Like, and it's funny because if we can get really clear about how we want to feel. And I think it takes the pressure off of, like, you don't have to know what you want. If you know how you want to feel and work to become that feeling and find evidence of how that feeling already exists within your life and expand that, then more doors and opportunities open and present themselves to have more of that feeling. And the mind cannot possibly imagine all that is in store for our lives. Yet we are so limited that we think like, okay, well, I just need to manifest my next vacation. And I mean, sure, go for it, but we're so much more expansive than our minds allow us to believe.
100%. My example to clients is always, look, if you have a back pain and you go to the doctor, you don't go in and tell the doctor, I need 800 milligrams of this and 900 milligrams of that and 25, and this should be my dosage. Like, you don't. You just go there and you say, I want relief for this back pain. And then the doctor figures out how you're going to get relief for the back pain. And you go home and you're peaceful. You take your medicine and you feel better with your back, right? So it's the same with the universe. You just have to tell the universe what you want to feel, and it will send you the prescription to feel that way. Very easy. So we'll do it with a doctor. We'll entrust what we want to feel to a doctor, but we won't do it with spirit. We won't do it with the universe, when the universe really knows the dosage we need, the medicine we need, exactly what our treatment plan should be to feel what we want to be, to feel what we want to feel. So
through the path of least resistance, no less, right?
Exactly. Just, we all want feelings, and I think the law of attraction and manifestation has kind of spiraled out of control in some ways, like the information about it that's out there. But it really just comes down to you tapping into a feeling that you want to have and letting the universe serve it to you in whatever way it feels is best aligned to you and your purpose. That's it.
And also, because so many of us, especially with the big things that we want to manifest or the big feelings, there's so many, like, I feel like every time we set an intention, the first thing that comes up is everything that's not aligned with that intention, right? Whether it's fears or, something else that's not aligned. And that's what we get shown first. And I think when people are like, why is it taking so long? I think that's another element of it. It's because the universe needs to help us see what's in the way. I mean, usually we're in our own way, but like how we're in our own way of getting what we want, right?
Yes, 100%. The universe has the bigger picture, spirit really knows. And if we just tell it, I really want to feel this, and I want to feel that because it's going to allow me to give love, to serve in a better way, to be able to help more. Like, our desires are the feelings that we want to have can't just be selfish feelings, right? They have to come down to service and love and peace and all of that good stuff. So if the universe sees that you're making these kind of demands or putting desires out there that don't align with that ultimate energy that we're here to experience as souls, it's not going to hand it to us, right? We have to be gearing up or manifesting things that allow us to give love out and to serve other people, whatever way that is, right? So you want to manifest abundance. Why? How are you going to help people with that abundance? really put your energy there if that's what you want to manifest. Who are you going to help? What foundation are you going to start? Who's going to benefit from this money? What is it going to do in terms of love and service? Because that's really what the universe wants us to kind of do.
Yeah. And what I hear you saying, it's about those pure intentions, right? Like so many times, I think we set an intention because we're trying to avoid a fear, right? So it's like, I want to be abundant because I don't want to be in fear of not having enough money. I want to be abundant because, right. And it's like an intention to negate an ego-based fear, right? And that's not a pure intention. And
No.
that's like, why is this not happening? Because it's not a pure intention. So
yes, yes, your intentions have to have that purity to them. If you're really gonna manifest them and have them withstand, the test of time. So
this is so good because I think you're pointing out to people so many good little nuggets about what it really takes to law of attract something. And it is so much of this inner job, and like really looking at when we set intentions, are they pure? Are they coming from a truly heart-based place? Or are they coming from a place of trying to negate our ego's fears or appease or assuage our ego's fears in some ways? And, preparing us to be receptive, how spirit prepares us to be receptive to the things that we actually want to experience in our lives, and then leaning back and just trusting how it's going to unfold. And to your point, like full circle, coming back to the beginning of the conversation, like really remembering along the way all the times that you've tried to create something and how every time you've up leveled, it's turned out better than you could have ever imagined, even if you can't see it while you're going through it, right?
Yeah, we can never see it while we're going through it, but I will tell you, with practice and with that trust, you will with time be someone who, like me, honestly, 100%, something that looks terrible shows up, and I just have this instant feeling that it's going to end up being something really good for me. It's going to change me in a way that brings me closer to my purpose, that allows me to serve people in a better way, that resonates with the energy of love. Like we're always winning. We're always winning. And we can't see it when we're there, which is why keep a file, because you're not going to be able to see it when you're there. But if you look back, the evidence is there. Keep it.
Yeah.
Keep it. And you'll see everything is just a process of leading you closer to the conclusion of your soul's plan, right? What you planned before you were even born. And that's something I don't think we even touched on, and we can't even get into it because that's a whole other topic. But yes, sometimes the universe has your plan and it's trying to keep you on track. So when you try to manifest things that go against that plan that you've locked in for yourself, it's not going to happen, right? No, it's just not going to happen. That's your soul's plan. You wanted it that way. But when you manifest something that is in alignment with it, it happens in a smooth way, peacefully. It kind of just keeps moving along. So anyway, that's that.
I know it's so good for people to hear, because I'm someone that does tend to go into resistance. Like the minute I'm like, ooh, change, like that's not my natural, it's a way I need to train myself to a perspective I'm trying to train myself to have, which is what you have. Like you just embrace change and you're looking at everything as, how is this happening for me, not to me? And that is such a life-changing switch, because even the bad stuff feels very purposeful.
Yeah. There, you nailed it. That's exactly the whole thing that we want to know in this conversation, especially when it comes to change and life transitions. You're going to be okay. And it's happening because you are being put in alignment with a win. That's it. Yeah. We never lose. We never, ever, ever, ever lose. We're just always being led to the next the next buildup, the next thing, the next milestone, the next piece of joy, the next, whatever it is, we're always elevating our game. Yeah. That's it.
And it feels so much better along the way to embrace that mindset as we move through it, right?
Yeah. Sit in the place where you are, especially if it's like you are now, like in that place of resistance, or not right now, but when you get to those moments of resistance, sit with it and just say, okay, I know I'm supposed to learn something here, because where I'm headed, I need that skill. I need that patience. I need whatever that ability is. I need this where I'm going. This is a part of my manifestation. And so I have to sit here, and the faster I can get it done and learn it, the better, right? And the faster way to learn it is to not resist it and just go through it.
Yeah, it is our resistance that causes all of the problems and the suffering, for that matter, truly.
Indeed.
Yeah. So you've given so many great tips, but anything else that you would offer people starting out on their spiritual journey?
I would say really create a vision for where you're headed. Plug in the coordinates of what you want your thing to be. And don't be afraid to really turn around and look at your purpose in the face. There's always this saying of like, follow or find your purpose, or, figure out what your purpose is. You already know what your purpose is. You already do. You, everyone that listens to this, your purpose is sitting with you. And so you just have to kind of acknowledge it, plug in the coordinates of where you want to go, and have the ride of your life. That's it. Have the vision and go for it.
Have the vision and get out of the way, right?
Yes. Have the vision and get out, and the universe will take care of the rest. You just kind of go along, smooth sailing. Just go with it.
Totally. Just ride the current. Yeah.
That's right.
So one question I always like to end with for my guests is, how do you see magic and miracles playing out in your own life?
Do you mean currently, like how things are currently going?
Or in general? You already gave some really fun examples of like, some of the magic you've experienced. But yeah, I'm just kind of curious if there's like other ways too that you see like magic or miracles playing out for you day to day.
Yeah. So I see my journey with my children and my family as just beautiful magic in the making. Like, I think about every generation that came before me. I think about my kind of job in that line of generational healing. And then I see its effect on my children. And that magic to me is really, really beautiful, showing them a whole new way of thinking, of seeing the world, of, trusting in the universe, and raising them to be these little, spiritual powerhouses that are very confident in their journey. That's my magic.
It's dreamy. That's what we can hope for the whole world, honestly. This is literally how we heal the planet, is by like working on ourselves, and that ripple effect that it has on humanity cannot be underestimated.
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. Well, Naz, how can my listeners support you?
I would encourage everyone to visit my website. I have a free webinar called Spiritual Detox, which comes with a workbook with journal prompts. And I think that's the starting point for anyone who wants to kind of get acquainted with me. And of course, by listening to my podcast, Third Eye Talks, anywhere that you listen to podcasts, it's a podcast all about spirituality and a lot of the themes that we touched on today. And it's 30 minutes or less. So your quick fix of spirituality every week.
Yeah, it's a good one. I listened to that one myself. So
and Lindsay was a guest on it too. So you can listen to her episode on there.
Yeah, thanks. Shameless plug. Yeah. Thanks, Naz. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of these experiences with our audience. I know there are like so many good nuggets of how spirit is guiding us and infiltrating our life. So thank you for being so open and honest.
Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure. Anytime I can talk about this beautiful journey that we're on, it's an honor for me. So thank you for having me. Congratulations on the podcast, and keep inspiring people. You're doing an amazing job.
Oh, thanks. Thank you so much for listening to the Guided Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I would be so grateful if you would share it with a friend, or even leave me a review so we can ensure that it makes its way into the ears of listeners who need to hear these messages most. Until next time, may you remember how guided you truly are.